Mastering the new Outlook calendar means less stress, better organization, and more time for what matters most. We're going to look at customizing your views, sharing options, creating meetings using the updated new event template, and more. Now it's time to look at how to use the calendar in new Outlook. To get there, go to the vertical navigation menu on the left and click the second icon. In the Arrange section on the ribbon, you can choose to view your events by day, work week, or month. Work week is the default and it's defined as Monday through Friday, but this can be changed in the Outlook settings. So let's go to the upper right-hand corner of the screen and select the gear icon. From the floating dialog box, we are on the Calendar tab. Then we're going to select Work Hours and Location. In the content area, you can see that there are check marks next to each day that you're scheduled to work. So let's pretend that I work Tuesday through Saturday. I can just switch the check marks, click Save, and now you'll see that my calendar is from Tuesday through Saturday instead. I'm going to quickly switch it back to a Monday through Friday view, and now we're going to take a look at the day option. If you click on the button, the calendar will show only the current date. If you select the drop-down beneath day, you can choose a specific number of dates. So for example, let's say we want to see 3 days of information at one time. Selecting week will show every day of the week. Anything outside of your normal work hours will be shaded in a light gray color, and your work hours will have a white background. If you happen to use dark mode, anything outside of your normal hours is a dark black color, and work hours are more like a dark gray color. When month is selected, all appointments for the current calendar month are displayed. For the rest of the video, I will use my preferred week view. Now, the last option we have in the Arrange section is Split. If you have access to other people's calendars, you can select it from the list on the left-hand side. This will stack their appointments right next to yours on a combined calendar, but sometimes this can be a little bit confusing. So what you can do is select Split, and it will create 2 different boxes, one for your calendar and one for theirs. Next, we have the filter section, and there are several choices to help you decide what to view on the calendar. A check mark next to an option means that you do want to see the related choice. Most of them are selected by default. Remove the check mark next to a category to stop seeing it on the calendar. So for example, there are 2 types of events. A meeting is created when you add at least one person as an attendee when you're creating the event. An appointment is only for you. So if I remove the check mark next to meetings, all I'm going to see are my appointments, such as the time I've blocked off to go to the dentist. All categories except appointments have an additional filter menu. So let's put meetings back on the calendar and click the little caret icon to see the extra choices for meetings. Notice that drafts is deselected. So if I have any calendar events that I'm working on but haven't sent, I'm not seeing them right now. When I select draft, we're going to see a new meeting appear. In this case, I haven't quite sent the lunch invitation to Adele yet. The Share section has 2 options, Share and Print. Print lets you choose the calendar you have access to and then decide on the format for the information that will be printed. View has the same choices as the Arrange section of the ribbon: day, week, work week, and month. When week and work week are selected, you will see a layout option. The standard option just shows the traditional calendar view. You can select horizontal agenda, meaning that the days read from left to right, or you can select vertical agenda, meaning that the days read from top to bottom. Then you can select a time range. The default is 9 to 5. But in this example, my workday starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 4, so I can adjust the times accordingly. Selecting Show Many Month will add 2 calendar boxes at the top for the current month and the next month. Selecting Print Detailed Agenda will show all of the information from the calendar invite. It will ignore any layouts that you may have selected, and it's formatted like a standard document with different headers for the individual meetings. When you click Print, you have the option to print as a PDF or select a printer and get a paper copy. Yes, some people use paper copies, especially when traveling and internet service is not reliable. Share Calendar is used to decide who can see your calendar and to set up delegates. If you have access to multiple calendars, when you click the Share button, you can choose which calendar to share. If you're setting up Outlook for the first time, clicking Share will go directly to the Share dialog box. In this demonstration, I'm going to use the scenario that we're filling this out for the first time. I've logged into Alex's account. To start out, there are 2 sections. Send an invitation to a specific contact or inside your organization. Let's look at inside your organization first. The default is everyone in the organization can view when I'm busy. You can switch it to not shared, can view titles and locations, can view all details, or can edit. Can view when I'm busy is the most commonly used option so that people can see what your availability is without necessarily needing to know all of the details on your calendar. Now let's look at a couple of ways that you can share your calendar with specific people. In the first example, I am Alex's manager and I need to see more than just the free busy information. So Alex will type my name in the field and then choose Can View Titles and Locations. Then he'll click Share and Outlook will automatically create an email letting me know that I have access to his calendar. The other option is to create a delegate. This allows you to let someone help you manage your calendar. Delegates are often executive assistants who can view, modify, or delete items. They can also create meeting requests and respond to invitations on your behalf. The other use case is when somebody is going on an extended leave of absence. In this example, Adele is a trusted coworker and will manage the calendar until Alex returns. You might need to modify existing events or refuse meeting requests on behalf of the person who is on leave. Before you share access, you need to decide if the delegate can view private events and manage categories, which are those color-coded tags we talked about in the Organize Your Inbox lesson. Private events are used so that you can separate out things that might be personal, like the dentist appointment I pointed out earlier, from the meetings that the delegate should manage. After you click Share, then you can decide where Outlook will send the invitations and responses. The default is delegate only, but you can change it to delegate and send me a copy, or both my delegate and me. Now we're going to look at how to create a new event by going back to the home ribbon. You can click the first icon or use the shortcut key Alt-N for Outlook on the web or Control-N for the Outlook desktop. And here you see the new Create Event template. The ribbon at the top of the invite has been simplified, and some of the options that used to be here have been moved so that they're next to the information it's tied to. On the ribbon, we have the Save button. When you add the first attendee to a meeting, it will change it to a Send button. If you click the drop-down next to the word Busy, you can change how the meeting shows up on your calendar using these pre-formatted options. You can also decide when to be notified before the meeting starts. In this example, I will get a pop-up notification 15 minutes before. However, there are other options ranging from Don't Remind Me at All to 1 week before. And you can also add an email reminder. Next is the option to choose a category to tag and color code the meeting. You can add more than one category, but the color shown on the calendar will be tied to the last option selected. Last, we have the lock icon that lets you mark this as a private meeting or appointment. Now we're going to walk through the create a meeting process. First, add a title. It should be specific enough that the attendees can understand what the meeting is about at a glance. In an earlier video in this series, we talked about people submitting their end of quarter metrics. This meeting is to review the results. Now we're going to add attendees. Whoever is added as an attendee is marked as required on the invite list. I would like to draw your attention to the response options drop-down at the end of the field. This is where the options for request response, allow forwarding, and hide attendees list was moved to. You also have the option to add a second line to the form for optional attendees. Anyone on this line will be marked as optional on the invite list. In this scenario, Adele is the one who submits and tracks the metrics, but Diego, her manager, just wants to know when the metrics meeting is happening. Now I'm going to set a date and time. Notice that when I select the field, there's a drop-down and Outlook is suggesting options based on the availability of the attendees. In this case, I already have a date and time in mind, so I will add it by filling in the boxes at the top of the drop-down. You also have the option to make this an all-day meeting or appointment. If that is selected, the event will show up at the top of the day without blocking time on the calendar. In this example, metrics is not an all-day event. Then we have the option to make this a reoccurring event, such as for weekly or monthly meetings. Click on reoccurring to choose how often the meeting will repeat and for how long. Outlook suggests an end date, but you can modify the end date or not have one at all. I do not recommend removing the end date because here's what often happens. A standard meeting is set up and then the person who created it leaves the company. At that point, nobody can modify or delete the meeting. Now, although the metrics happen once a quarter, I don't need this to be reoccurring, so I'm going to click the reoccurring option again to turn the feature off. At the end of the date time field, you have Scheduler, which is the new way of saying scheduling assistant. This lets you see everyone's information stacked on top of each other to help you find a time where everyone is available. This is one example of how Outlook uses the free busy information. Notice that I don't see anything for Adele and Diego. This is because for the purpose of this demonstration, I changed their inside the organization setting to not shared. It makes it harder to find a time for meetings. This is an example of why I suggested leaving the default can view when I'm busy. Let's click the back button and then go to the location field where you can add a room for an in-person meeting. I want to draw your attention to the location settings at the end of the field. This is where the in-person event toggle button moved to. When toggled on, the words in person are added at the end of the meeting title in brackets. If you have a paid Copilot license, you can use the toggle to have Copilot look for and book similar rooms if the one you selected is not available. Just below the location field is the Teams meeting toggle button. You can turn this on at the same time as in person if you are creating a hybrid event where some people will be in the office and others are either working from home or in a different geographic location. Now it's time to draft the agenda. Include enough details that the attendees know what to expect from the meeting and what to prepare for in advance. In this example, I have a paid Copilot license, so I'm going to ask the AI to draft an agenda for me and insert the contents into the details box. Copilot recognized that this is a metrics review meeting and created some basic bullet points. We can add additional information to the prompt to refine the results. For example, I want everyone to review the file that will be attached and then say that each person should prepare their questions before the meeting. The result is pretty good, but the tone is a bit off for my writing style. I'll scroll down to change tone and select casual. Now, this is more like what I would actually type, so I'm going to click keep it. Now, of course, you can add, delete, or modify any of these contents. At the bottom of the details box, we have a toolbar. This is where I will attach the files that are mentioned in the second to last bullet point. You can upload a file from your computer, or you can select one from OneDrive or Teams. If the file lives in a traditional SharePoint site, you will need to add a link in the details section instead. One of the things that I like to point out is the editor option, because this is how Outlook knows how you would like to be prompted to correct and refine your writing. For example, I like to turn on text predictions so that it can look at what I'm saying and then autofill in words or phrases as I type. Depending on the settings in your organization, enable auto capitalization may or may not be turned on. I like to turn it on because sometimes I miss things when my brain and typing fingers are at two different speeds. Seriously, is anybody with me on this one? Drop me a comment and let me know. Another example under grammar is to have Outlook check for a mistake when you type an when you mean and, A-N-D. This is something I do all the time, and apparently so do a lot of people if this is a preset. There's a lot to look at, so I suggest taking a few minutes to check it out and see if you need to modify any of these settings. Next, we have the option to insert a loop component. This is a container that can hold information that will be updated in real time without needing to resend the meeting invite. For example, I'm going to insert a loop and ask the attendees to confirm that they have reviewed their metrics. They don't need to send me an email. They can just open the meeting invite and put a check mark next to their name. Next time I open the invitation, I will see the updated information. The meeting invite is looking pretty good. We can send the invite or save it as a draft. I happen to be creating the meeting on the weekend and I don't want to send it until Monday. So I'm going to click Save as Draft. Now let's flash forward and pretend it's Monday. I will go to the date and time on the calendar, edit the draft meeting, and click Send. If you do not see the draft event, go to the filter in the home ribbon and open the options for meeting. Put a check mark in draft. I turned drafts on earlier in the video. If I remove the check mark, notice that the draft disappears from the screen. I'll select draft again to put it back. Now let's go back up to the ribbon in the top left side of the screen and click on the View tab so we can look at some useful features that are hidden over here. Now in the Arrange section, you have the same day, work week, week, and month options, but you also have the Save View option. This is useful when you want to look at the calendars in different ways based on various scenarios. So for example, let's say I want to track Diego and Nestor's calendars, and I also want to have it in a split view. Instead of selecting and deselecting the calendars every time, I can save a view, give it a name, and then whenever I need to look at their calendars, I will go back to Save View and select the option. The next option we have is Timescale. By default, your calendar shows in 30-minute increments. If you switch it to 60, the meeting cards will become as small as possible. If you switch it to 5 minutes, your meeting cards will be much bigger. Most people I know leave it at either 30 or 15 minutes, but a common scenario is to switch it to 6-minute increments, especially when you work in a field like marketing where they bill in 6-minute increments. The last option we have on the View ribbon is Calendar Settings. This is another way to get to the Settings dialog box instead of clicking the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner. but it is the exact same settings that you would see there, and that will be the topic of the next video in this series.